And Senator Serval, do you have two bills before us? Okay. Why don't we start with the quickest one?
That's 995.
Okay.
You're either going to love it or hate it.
That's usually the way it goes with your bills.
Yeah.
You don't ever go for lukewarm, so, okay. Senate
Yeah.
Bill 995 is before us.
Thank you. So, Madam Chairman, Senate Bill 995 simply repeals the 14th enactment clause of what was then Delegate Hugo's legislation regarding the funding for WMATA. There was an enactment clause on that bill that restricted or prohibited WMATA from entering into a project labor agreement for any project and any future projects. And as at least those of us in Northern Virginia know, Phase 1 of Silver Line was built with a PLA, came in mostly in budget and on time. Phase 2 is not and has been a train wreck. So we think we should repeal this restriction on PLAs.
So, Mr. Chairman,
That's the
Madam
beginning
Chair.
and end. Senator Obenshain, yes.
So your evidence to support the proposition that it's a train wreck because of no PLA is what?
I can't be more specific than that. I can describe some of the problems, but I'll just note that also I believe the mixing bowl was built without a PLA, and I think that's the one Senator Saslaw cites. It was kind of a mess.
Came in way over budget.
Right.
They had some
And
safety
it
issues.
came in over budget because there was no PLA?
Senator Saslaw is better at making that argument than I am, I'll just say. But in general, we have another bill to repeal the restriction on PLAs generally, and this policy is consistent with that.
And again, they still remain voluntary. There's nothing in this bill that requires it. It
Right.
just removes a prohibition,
Right.
just for clarity. Okay, does anybody wish to speak in favor or in opposition? Okay, I expect you're going to speak in favor. Hi, Vicki.
Hi, greetings. Victoria Leonard, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Victoria Leonard, representing the Baltimore-Washington Laborers District Council, which is part of LIUNA. Thank you, Senator Serval, for introducing this. Basically, when they introduced the WMATA funding bills in Virginia, Maryland, and D.C., in Maryland and the District of Columbia, they didn't include a clause that eliminated the discretion of WMATA from deciding as a project owner whether it was in the best interest to do a PLA on a project. And so we are asking in this bill to remove that restriction that you have on the Virginia projects. This is would make it consistent with the funding with WMATA's discretion in the other jurisdictions.
Okay, anybody in opposition? Hearing none, the bill is before us.
Move to report.
Move to report.
Okay, motion has been made to report, and there's a second. Will the clerk
May I
please?
speak to the?
Yes.
Yeah, let me just.
Senator Obenshain.
Let me just say that I want to point out that we're adopting or reporting this bill citing, number one, two projects that did not go well. When asked, heard absolutely no evidence supporting any link between the inefficiencies of those products and the lack of a project labor agreement. Number two, Maryland and the District of Columbia were held up as models of efficiency that we should emulate in terms of how we spend our state government resources, and I reject categorically that suggestion. I think that we are making a grave mistake by backing away from this policy. I know what direction we're headed. I know what's going to happen with this bill, but I think it's a grave error.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, Senator Boysko.
speaking to the bill.
Go ahead.
So no one is obligated to enter into a PLA if they do not wish to. However, I represent the majority of the Phase 2 Silver Line area and Dulles Airport, which controls that region. When a PLA is entered into, one, you are assured that there are no strikes. 2, you have an assurance that the people who are going to be on the job are well trained and understand exactly what they're doing. 3, you know that there are safety standards that are being appealed to. This is a common sense and reasonable thing. I am strongly supporting it, and I'm happy to be voting in favor of it today.
Okay, a motion is before the committee. Will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 8, no 7.
Your bill passes. Senator Serval, you can move
Thank you.
on to your complicated one.
And it's not too complicated. It's just probably going to be some argument. Senate Bill 664. Mr. Chairman, you all set?
Hold on one moment here. Yeah, there we go.
Got it.
Set. Senator Servo, what is your bill number, please?
664.
664. Any substitute or amendment to this bill?
I have, I think there's going to be an amendment made, which is friendly, but nothing, actually, I have one amendment, I'm sorry. There's one amendment I agreed to we can add, which is that should we adopt this, it's been requested that it have a delayed enactment to January 1 of 2021.
Where'd mine go?
I would move that amendment.
Okay, the amendment that it's a delayed enactment up till January or till next
January
July?
1 of 2021. So it's
Okay.
a 6-month delay from what we normally.
There's a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second for a delayed enactment until January 1, 2021. Could the clerk open the roll?
No, there's no, it's just
We just
verbal.
voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Senator Servo, you're anticipating another amendment?
Yeah, probably. Let me explain the bill.
All right, let's
So,
go with that first.
This bill would raise our auto insurance liability minimum and property damage minimum for the first time since 1975. Right now, it says $100,000, and I expect there to be an amendment on that. But, Mr. Chairman, if you were to take $25,000 and put it in a time machine calculator deal, it would be worth about $125,000 today. The number one driving factor in the settlement of personal injury liability claims is medical bills. And if you were to take medical inflation instead of regular old inflation for $25,000 over the last 40 years, it would probably be closer to about $250,000 in terms of 1975 dollars versus today dollars. Okay, but the fact this number hasn't moved in what's now 44 years to me is astonishing. In addition, the property damage minimum in here is $20,000. A $20,000 car in 1975 would be the equivalent of like a Tesla or something today. You can't get a new car for $20,000 today. So the result of this, Mr. Chairman, is that the number of people that who are injured and are not fully compensated is growing. And in addition to that, people are not being fully compensated for the loss of their vehicles. And one other thing I'd like to point out is that when somebody who's injured who receives their health care from Medicaid, Medicaid has a lien on their recovery. And so if there's only $25,000 in coverage and there's not more, then that hurts Medicaid because then Medicaid doesn't get that reimbursement. And I know a lot of us are concerned about the growth in Medicaid, but part of the reason Medicaid's growing is because we keep pushing all this stuff into Medicaid instead of dealing with it. And so this is one way to help with Medicaid. So the last thing I'll say is I anticipate there to be some concern about how increasing rates might raise the number of people who can afford insurance, or that I will just note that I have a flyer from the insurance agents and brokers of Pennsylvania where they call it a myth that increasing minimum limits will lead to an increase in the percentage of uninsured motorists. They say statistics do not support that argument. Since 2007, more than a dozen states have increased their minimum limits: Alabama, Illinois, Louisiana, Oregon, South Carolina, Texas, and our two neighbors, Maryland and Ohio. Of these states, Louisiana had a 1% increase in their uninsured motorist percentage, while other states showed notable decreases, such as Maryland, which went from 14.9% to 12.2% as of 2012. And so I would just point out that history does not bear out these doomsday scenarios that you're probably about to hear. And having said that, Mr. Chairman, that's what the bill is, and I'm also happy. Right now it says $100,000. I'm happy to accept a friendly amendment for a lower amount if that's the committee's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, Madam, Mr.
Senator Obenshain.
You want an amendment now?
Sure.
35,000.
And I would support that, and I would second the motion.
What about the others, 35?
Well, we'll take it one amendment at a time.
Well, 35.
And this is to take the $25,000.
In my bill, it goes to $100,000. I would strike 100. I think the amendment is to strike $100,000 everywhere it appears and make it 35,000, and to strike 200,000 and make it 70.
Okay. Well, before we get into this, if you don't mind, let's hear from.
I would second that. I would second that motion, by the way.
Huh?
Let's vote on that before we hear everyone's thoughts.
On the line amendment to change the figure from.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
From 100, 200 to 35, 70.
To 100.
From 100, 200 to 35, 70. Whoever 100 appears, put 35. Whoever 200 appears, put 70.
Right.
The minimum limits would be 35,000 per person, 70 per accident.
Per accident.
Mr. Chairman.
One moment. Okay, let's. I think we're kind of rushing things here without hearing from people. Is there any lawful way I can?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The
Hold
point
this.
of order is that basically you can make a motion and second it, but then it's debatable.
Okay.
The only thing that's not debatable is the motion.
Okay,
to table.
let's. We are in a debatable posture here right now. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of?
Well, we need, let's, point of order, we need to vote on the amended.
I don't care.
The
I'll
substitution.
gladly withdraw that. I mean,
I
whatever
would
speeds
appreciate
this
that,
along.
because we'd be voting on something where we haven't heard complete testimony. That's the whole point of this bill, and I just feel uncomfortable without hearing both sides of this thing before we start amending
I
it.
think both sides will be comfortable or minimally uncomfortable with this amendment, but glad to.
Let's not rush this thing. This is this has financial implications for a lot of folks. So state your name. Are you in favor?
I am in favor. Mark Dix on behalf of the Virginia Trial Lawyers Association, Mr. Chairman. And as Senator Serville mentioned, when these limits were first enacted back in 1975, a 25, 50, 20 may have made sense. But with healthcare costs what they are today, lost wages, the value of vehicles, it's time for an update. I'd also note that the current levels, if we were to keep those, they unfairly shift the burden from the fiscally irresponsible tortfeasor to those that are fiscally responsible with respect to their UM and UIM. I suspect you'll hear some old saws about that there's going to be this rush of uninsured drivers if we raise the premiums. We've heard that for years, if not decades. We've never seen any data to back that up, and so we would appreciate your support of this bill. Thank you.
All right, next. Any questions? Okay, next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee. My name is Carrie Ann Alford, and I am before you today as a private citizen and resident of Richmond, Virginia. I was in a car accident back in May 5th of 2019, almost 9 months ago. I will start off by saying that 9 months later, I'm still on 1 prescription and 7 very expensive supplements to help with inflammation in my brain and neck. I was sitting at a red light, minding my own business, and was hit from behind by a distracted driver. It was only then that I learned that I have the bare minimum requirement by insurance for an uninsured motorist hitting me, $25,000 compensation, which is also the year I was born, almost 45 years ago. My out-of-pocket costs, even with excellent insurance, was about $30,000, and that's when we stopped counting because my insurance would only compensate $25,000. After attorney fees and liens from the hospital and doctors, I will be compensated for only about $16,000, or just a little over half of what I actually submitted to insurance and have paid out of pocket. I am blessed with many resources. I am able to absorb that. I am perfectly fine, if Liberty Mutual is listening, perfectly fine with the check they are sending me. But even now, almost 9 months later, I struggle with brain and neck injuries. They are still healing. I struggle with headaches, neck pain from the damaged tendons and ligaments, and cognitive issues. We went ahead and submitted the claim because I was beyond what I could recover. I will get no payment for pain and suffering. I will not be fully compensated for what I paid out. I was not able to utilize advanced treatments for brain injuries because I knew insurance would not reimburse me later. I am here today for myself, but also to speak for the minimum wage workers, the single parents struggling to get by, and all those Virginians who are not as blessed as I am with resources of an excellent education, a family who taught me to fight for myself, and well-connected friends who are attorneys and offered to help me and represent me before the insurance company. They helped me navigate a scary process while recovering from a serious brain injury. The cost of healthcare treatments and recovery from serious car accidents has gone up exponentially over the years, but the minimum requirements have not. I ask this committee to advance this bill and protect Virginians in their most vulnerable time when they are the victims of an uninsured motorist causing an accident. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry for your injuries. That's got to be a difficult thing. Anyone else in favor? Chris, come on up. I assume you're in opposition to the
Yes,
bill?
sir. Chris Legault for APCI, Nationwide, and other insurers as well. This issue has been before you before, as recently as 2018. It resulted, when it was here in 2018, in a DMV study from December of 2018, just 13 months ago. That DMV study emphatically said in its recommendations, do not change the minimum financial responsibility limits in Virginia. Emphatically, clearly. The only reason posited by the trial lawyers and by the patron of the bill is we haven't done this in a long time. Let me give you some numbers and I'll explain to you why we haven't done it in a long time. And that's important to recognize. I hate to bore you with statistics, but they are very valid statistics in this report. They're not from me, they're right from the DMV report. We have a fairly good uninsured motorist rate, higher than anybody would like, no doubt, but still pretty good. We're ranked 17th out of 51 jurisdictions with a 9.9% uninsured motorist rate. Please remember that the national average is 13%. We're at 9.9. We have the third lowest insurance rates among our neighboring states, about 25% less than the national average.
When you say then our three neighbor,
our neighboring states, in the Mid-Atlantic, North Carolina, Maryland, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and others are in that. The chart is right here in the study. And
how many states are we third?
We're third in the region. In the country, and this is important too.
I know that number.
The states that have changed their minimum limits went to our minimum limits. We are the gold standard for minimum limits in the country. 44 states have minimum limits equal to or less than our own 25, 50, 20 limits. Equal to or less than. So that's critical. Only 6 states have higher limits. This change would put us at number 2 highest in the entire country. Only 2 states, Alaska and Maine, have 5,100 limits, and 4 other states are marginally higher than we are at 3,060. Okay, that's where they are. This would put us number 2 in the entire country. As again, the DMV study very plainly says, do not change these rates. Here's a number of reasons why they said that. We've learned from the Bureau of Insurance, okay? They brought the statistics to the stakeholder meetings at DMV. Only about 14% of drivers in Virginia purchase the minimum limits now. What does that mean? It means 86% buy at least double that amount, at least double, if not 100, 300, 300, 500, a million, whatever it may be. But people can buy as much of it as they want to buy. It's the people at the low end of the economic spectrum who frequently are the ones who are buying the minimum limits coverage. And only about 14% of the drivers in Virginia, the insurance population, is buying that low-end 25, 50, 20 policy. There's an ample plenty insurance to cover claims. On property damage, the study showed 99.39% of property claims are settled under the current $20,000 limit. Many of them are settled under $10,000. So raising the property claim, just the property number, that's the third number in the in the substitute language, the 3570-40 language. 40 is the property damage liability coverage. 90% of bodily injury claims are settled under $25,000, the current limit, and 65% of those are settled under $10,000. Who are we trying to help here? The bill only hurts the low income, the elderly, military people, etc. Again, the public can buy as much of it as they want, but the mandatory minimums are affecting the lower income people, younger people, military, etc. Another point, the size of the policy does not have any effect on the size of the claim. If I have $1 million policy, but I hurt somebody and it's a $20,000 claim, the fact that I have $1 million policy doesn't make it $1 million claim payout. It's still a $20,000 claim. Raising the minimums are only going to hurt the most vulnerable people among us and make them, and it's no old saw, as was stated, people who are forced out of the marketplace because of the higher prices that will be charged for the higher limits on these minimum people, they're going to become uninsured motorists. If you are living paycheck to paycheck, earning minimum wage, whatever the case may be, you got groceries, you got rent, you got health care expenses, you got a car payment.
Mr. Chairman.
You got an insurance payment.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
I think we get the idea. A question for Mr. Legal real quick. Is it your position that you would, in fact, advocate to reduce, based on your testimony, down to 10,000 the limits? And
no, sir.
That is a better public policy? Because, no. I mean, I understand your points, but what we're getting at is what are the thresholds of a minimum that haven't been changed since I was born?
The study that was just done 13 months ago says very clearly and plainly there's no reason to increase the current 25, 50, 20. And the numbers that I've given you, support that. People who have, like I was saying, car payments, groceries, et cetera, to pay, and insurance, well, if you run up the cost of that insurance product,
Mr. Chairman,
what's going to fall off the table?
We have the amendment before us, and I don't think we've heard anything about the amendment. I think that we ought to, just like in every other
Senator Obenshain withdrew it.
You withdrew it?
Yep.
I'll make it again.
I was going to say, I'll move it now.
Well,
I'll move the identical
all right,
amendment.
just hold on.
I just don't think there's any
let's finish.
minds
Let's
changing.
finish up.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Legault,
I
finish.
would urge you not to support this bill. It's only going to hurt those who are the most vulnerable among us.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure there are others that want to speak to.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Senator
for
Boysko.
Mr. Legault.
Yes.
Mr. Legault, would you be able to give us an idea of how much an insurance premium in general would go up if we were to go up to 35 and 70 as was proposed?
In the study, again, and this is right from the study, it actually was priced out at 50, 100, and that was going to raise premiums about 12% for the average male 45 years old.
So, Mr. Chairman.
So that's going to vary policy by policy, person by person, but the average increase was going to be about 12%.
Senator Obenshain.
$40 to $60
wow.
per car
So
per person.
I get a 100% increase in my coverage for only 12% more. That sounds like a pretty good deal.
Not to those who don't have any money, Senator.
What about when those people are paying attorney's fees for reckless driving? I never heard that
All right.
concern before.
Senator Suderline, go through the chair. Here we go. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the bill?
Hi, my name is Judy Swiston. I appreciate Mr. Chairman and all the members of the committee. I'm with Black and White Taxi Cabs in Norfolk, Virginia, and we feel that these unintended consequences of raising uninsured motorist coverage for all the passengers that we transport and having all these people you say it's only 15%. Well, all of a sudden now I've got a lot more people that are passengers in my vehicle. If we're hit by uninsured motorists, we have to pick up that tab. And so all of a sudden, even though you may think it's only 12% and you think it's a great deal, what it is it's just going to cause us to have more uninsured motorist coverage. And it's not just going to be our uninsured motorist coverage. It's going to be the transit authority's uninsured motorist coverage. It's going to be every commercial vehicle in the state's uninsured motorist coverage. It's going to be your uninsured motorist coverage. It's going to raise everybody's uninsured motorist coverage.
Okay.
Because this uninsured motorist goes to the minimums. The one last thing, you were mentioning about health care costs. One thing you might consider is that the attorneys can bring the full amount of the medical bills, but they can't, but the insurance doesn't pay that much. So we're paying on the full medical bill, even if the insured really only got half.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
thank you.
I got a question for her.
Yes.
Senator Obenshain.
Don't you all have $125,000 minimum limits already?
Uninsured motorist still stays at the state minimums. And also, commercial auto liability is at a critical time right now. They're seeing double digits with no incidents whatsoever.
Further question.
Senator Obenshain.
So, are you telling me that you all buy the $125,000 limit coverage for your passengers or for other people, but you all elect, your company elects minimum limits for your driver?
No.
For coverage?
For the passengers that are hit by uninsured motorists, I have to pick up that tab because I have to pick up their fault.
Oh, I get it. And I'm just trying to understand your argument. So you're arguing that this is going to create more uninsured drivers that is going to add to the burden on your coverage. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood. I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay.
All right.
All right, thank you very much. Just an observation before we get to a motion. We ask people to do studies. They do studies, our state agencies, and the state agency, in this case, Division of Motor Vehicles, did the study, made the recommendation. It is still a fairly recent study, and the recommendation was not to take any action at this time. And while that is my recommendation to the committee, we operate on a motion. Senator Sertivell, would you like to close up first, and then we'll take a motion on your bill?
Well, I would just say I think that's kind of an oversimplification. There was a stakeholder group that met, and the stakeholder group, whatever they were, took some kind of vote, and there was a dissenting view, which you just heard from. So, in any event.
But indeed, the study was asked for, it was delivered, and I have confidence in the Division of Motor Vehicles that it was handled properly, and everything is going to be a stakeholder driven operation. So
I move to amend 2570.
There's been a movement to a motion to
I'm sorry,
amend
3570.
to amend 3570. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor? We'll record.
Aye.
No, we just say all in favor. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
John likes 100.
Let's do it on the board, please.
For the
This is for the amendment from Senator Obenshain. Hold on. I'm not. Barbara, do you have me still? Put me a no. There we are.
Ayes 9, noes 4.
Mr. Chairman, I move to report.
second.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Cosgrove.
I actually had another amendment to offer.
Senator
withdraw
Cosgrove,
that.
state your amendment.
The amendment, I have to get Lisa to draw this, is that the contingency fee that a lawyer would get from an award would still be based on the current rates.
A third?
Nope.
It's still the same.
Instead of getting 33 or 40% of 25.
I have absolutely no idea whether that's an appropriate. Staff, do you have a?
Is there a second? Is there a second for the motion?
Is it a proper amendment in this section of the code?
I would make a substitute motion to report. As amended.
Is this, before I make a ruling as to whether this is in order, because if we have to amend something that in the code that's not before us.
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw my amendment.
All right, he withdraws his motion, so the motion is no longer. Okay, so the motion is to report the bill as amended. Open the rolls. All in favor, vote aye. Opposed, nay. Yeah, vote me nay.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Ayes 10, noes 5. The bill is on its way.
So you get an extra $3,000 for your award.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McPike.
I'd like to reconsider the manner in which we move to continue Senate Bill 87 regarding the Virginia Beach strong plates in order to give the patron a week to resolve some language that might be able to resolve the issue to still move it forward.
Okay, the motion is to reconsider the vote. All in favor, open, it's a voice vote, so all in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay, it's back before us, and do you have another motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we pass the bill by for the week.
Motion is to pass the bill by for the week. Without objection, the bill is passed by for the week. I know, and while we're at it, I also would like a motion to take Senate Bill 968 by for the week.
So moved.
So Senate Bill 968 is also by for the week. And Senator Deeds, are you still with us? What do you have for us?
Senate Bill 290. I think there's an amendment to the bill. It's a simple bill that